Welcome to the Board Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dale Bannon, where I get the opportunity and the privilege to speak with some extraordinary leaders who serve with the National Advisory Board of the Salvation Army. And today is one of those rare privileges for me because I've worked with this gentleman for a very long time. He serves on the National Advisory Board, and he is one of our really chief marketing subject matter experts who leads our community relations committee on the National Advisory Board. Will you welcome with me Stephen Quinn? Welcome to the podcast, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Dale. It's great to be here today.
Stephen, I think for those who certainly know you on the National Advisory Board, you've been now serving, I think it's 7 years. Is that about right?
That's about right. Yeah, it's been quite a ride. It's been fun.
Could you just share with our listeners who may not know you about yourself, your vocational journey, and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you. This is a privilege for me as well, and it's been a privilege to be on the NAB because it's just such a great group of people. And I'll tell you what, Dale, the thing that I love the most is interacting with all the people with the Army. Certainly the NAB board members, but the people who are full time on the Army, they're just so inspirational to work with. And I always leave our interactions together feeling pretty filled up, to be honest. So it's just really it's great. A little bit about me. My wife Linda and I have been married for a grand total of 88 years, 44 apiece. And there's nothing in our past at the beginning that would have predicted that I'd be here talking to you today, Dale. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We both grew up in the suburbs in Toronto, Canada, and in fact, we were less than a half a mile apart from each other. We met in high school, and we fell in love pretty immediately. And all I can say is that our love was about as mature as you can imagine for any teenagers. So not very. It's amazing when you meet someone and you're that young. And she was a lot younger than me too, as well. But when we look back, we just could never have imagined the amazing adventure that we'd be on together. And honestly, if we had known what was ahead of us, we probably couldn't have prepared for it either. Maybe we wouldn't even have decided to go forward. I don't know. We both grew up in very tightly knit families and with a very strong belief in family. And so when we got married, we started immediately having a family ourselves. We've got 3 wonderful children. Today, 2 of those children are alive and well and doing great and prospering, and 1 is in heaven. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. From a vocational standpoint, my dad grew up on a farm, and he was the first one in his family to leave the farm and actually go into business. And I guess in a lot of ways, he instilled me with a lot of values that might fit broadly under the headline of the American dream. Work hard, go to school, get educated, be diligent in what you're doing, and a lot of good things will happen. And in our case, that was largely true. When I was in business school, I had the opportunity to, think about what area of business I'd want to go into. And at that time, finance was a really big area. It still is today. And I took this, what I now realize was kind of a side road into the finance profession after I graduated from school. And fortunately for me, I discovered early on that this was not the field that I should be in. And I'd had some experience in sales before I went to business school and always had an interest in marketing. And so I jumped out of finance and into marketing. And from there, I just had a career that's just been so really blessed. I've worked on many huge international brands and just had a career where not only did I have the opportunity to do a lot of great work with great people and great companies, big, well-known companies, but also to participate in the the profession of marketing, including trade associations and those kinds of things, trying to become better at the profession that I was a part of. And so I had a really great journey in my marketing career, which was well over 30 years working in various companies. And many aspects of that journey kind of pale in comparison to the journey that I had with Christ. I grew up in a family that went to church on a very regular basis, Presbyterians, and but honestly, I it almost sounds cliche because I hear this from a lot of other people. I was kind of a cultural Christian, to be honest. I mean, I always viewed myself as a Christian, but I wouldn't say I had a very strong relationship with Christ. And that all changed for us when our daughter struggled and then ultimately died from her struggles when she was around 20 years old. And in our case, that was 15 years ago. Those struggles started a little before that, and so I've had a very rich journey with Jesus over the last 20 years, and that's where I am today. It continues to this very day, including getting me involved in things like the Salvation Army. And again, that's why I said at the beginning that there was nothing at the beginning of my adventure with my wife on our life journey that would have predicted that I'd be talking to you today. But I'm really glad that I'm here.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing, Stephen. Was there anything certainly shared about your daughter's passing of this earthly life? Was there a moment in time or a church or a person who was instrumental in helping you turn to Christ at that very vulnerable time in your life?
There were, and that's why I'm so grateful to what God has done in my life because things happened to me really from the beginning of my life that were all just laying the groundwork for what obviously God knew was ahead of us. And in a lot of ways, I became like, I don't know if you've ever read Dante's Inferno, but at the beginning of Inferno, he says something to the effect of halfway through the journey of my life, I found myself lost in a dark forest. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I was having this amazing family experience, amazing marriage, cliche in many ways, nothing extraordinary. Just it just was going great for decades, and a great career experience on top of that. And while there certainly were some ups and downs, they were pretty minor compared to what was ahead of us. But like I said, when our youngest daughter started to really struggle with a mental illness, borderline personality disorder, it just really came out of the blue. And pretty early on, we both discovered that we did not have the kind of faith that can save you from something like that. And so, while I know some people, as they go through those struggles, may go in the opposite direction, we leaned into what really we had learned in church as kids. And to your specific question, God had surrounded us with some amazing godly people who really encouraged us through these many struggles, and then ultimately through the several years grieving process that we went through after our daughter passed away. And we had so many amazing experiences with God because of that. I mean, probably prayed half of the Psalms over and over again, and just I felt God's presence in such a tangible way. It's very weird almost if you haven't been through an experience like that to say this, but in many ways, I even miss that experience because I did feel just Jesus's presence so close, and that's hard to sustain over a couple of decades. But it it was a great experience in that respect, while being horrible in many other aspects, as you
Yeah.
can imagine.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And um, it's amazing how the Lord gives us His presence and His Spirit at the right time. And what a testimony you and your wife have, and 44 years each. I like how you said that.
Yeah.
Combined total of 88 years of marriage. because it takes us both to go all in, right, with our spouses. And
Absolutely.
what a gift from
Absolutely.
God, and what a heritage you had in your family and your father early on, and just an introduction to Christ, and then allowing Him to use that horrific time, obviously, to remind you that He's always close by. And I'm so glad that you are where you are today, being a blessing to others. You have a terrific career, and I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about your career. And you think about all the places where you've been the chief marketing officer for Frito Lay, of course for Walmart, I believe also Procter and Gamble, Johnson and Johnson, Quaker Oats. What led you to marketing? You talked about how it wasn't quite finance wasn't your way. You discovered that early in college, but was there something unique that led you to marketing that you really enjoyed?
Well, it's interesting looking back now. I always had an interest in marketing. I always had an interest, and even in sales, because I was always interested in the customer side of a business, and in innovation and things like that. What made a customer? What kept a customer? Uh, and really, when you're a kid, you experience a lot of these things really as a consumer, and I always really notice things like advertising and new products and those kinds of things. And like I said, I got kind of sidetracked in business school. I mean, because of that interest, I took a lot of marketing courses. So I don't want anybody to think that I went into marketing, but I'd never taken a marketing course, because I did. But I did get sidetracked, really almost like, in a worldly way, because at that time, finance was just such an attractive area to go into, and kind of the road to be successful, I guess you could say. And that was something I always had, a very strong ambition in business, and I guess I just, in a very simple way, said, well, if that's the way to go, then I'm willing to do that. But honestly, when I graduated, I took a job in finance, and I discovered pretty early on, this is not the field for me. Not only is it not that interesting to me, but there's so many other people that are so much better than I am at this. And so I could see the writing on the wall. And like I said, fortunately for me and also for the companies I was working for, I made that switch very early on. And that's when I moved actually into Johnson and Johnson, and worked on baby products there and Tylenol. From there, I went to work at Quaker Oats, where I got to work on Quaker Oats, and then ultimately on a number of their other products. Quaker granola bars, rice aroni, lots of their cereals, and that was a great experience. And ultimately, I ended up at PepsiCo in the Frito Lay division in Canada. Had a great experience there. Got transferred to Frito Lay in Plano, Texas, and so
Is that with
we
our
came.
friend Steve Reineman at the time?
Yes, Steve Reineman was the CEO when I was there, and there is a Salvation Army connection there, obviously, since Steve Reineman was the chair of the NAB for a number of years, and so not only did I find out I was pretty good at marketing, but I just loved it. I mean, once I got into it, I was like, wow, this is how really it's supposed to feel. And I never lost that feeling. I mean, for decades, I had that feeling. I loved it. I love being involved with the Association of National Advertisers, really the largest trade association for marketers, because I loved the field of marketing, and had a great opportunity. Finished the last 11 years of my career at Walmart as the chief marketing officer there, and it was just a fantastic experience.
Wow, and Walmart's such an amazing partner of the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
We just couldn't do it without Walmart, that's for sure. 30 years in the marketing industry and sector. What has changed over those 30 years? What's been the most remarkable change, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that. It's not certainly not a big secret. I'm not revealing anything that people wouldn't even imagine here, and that is technology has really changed things dramatically. And possibly interestingly, probably the first half of my career, it wasn't much of a factor. In fact, we could see working in marketing. Wow. technology is really changing the finance function, the accounting function, production, operations. But it'll never change marketing. Maybe it'll help us get a little more organized with better project management, that sort of thing. But ultimately, as everyone knows today, it's just had a dramatic impact on the field of marketing. And as a result, it's really become a much more precise business, much more data driven, integrated, much better, I would say, with the organizations involved in. And it's become much more left brain, much more rational, and as a result, probably much more accountable as well. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily better, if I could make a value judgment here, but you really can't practice marketing today if you're not really interested in data, data stacks, technology, a lot of things, Dale,
Analytics, targeting, absolutely.
ecosystems, a myriad of distribution channels and partners that are required to pull all of that off. So, when I graduated, a lot of business schools like Kellogg was and still is considered an unbelievable school to practice marketing. But then schools like Stanford and things in Silicon Valley started really having a dramatic impact on careers and honestly on the effectiveness of marketing. So it's been a pretty big change. A lot more math involved.
There's your finance background.
That didn't
Comes
hurt,
full
actually.
circle. Of all those campaigns you've been a part of and brands, is there anything that sticks out in your mind as one of your most favorite or one that you're most proud of?
You know, I mean, it would have to be Walmart because, in so many ways, when I worked previous to Walmart, I worked in these huge packaged goods companies: Procter and Gamble, Johnson Johnson, Quaker Oats, and they have these portfolios of brands. So if you're at Quaker Oats and you get to work on Quaker Oats, that's amazing. And I really love these brands that have a real history. It's one of the reasons I really love the Salvation Army. Um, eh, but working on Walmart, the scale of everything was so much larger, and it's got a great history as well. But for me, one of the biggest things I believe in marketing is the is really understanding the purpose, and it's really in the case of Walmart because the brand and the company are the same thing. It's what is the purpose of the whole organization. And you don't join an organization as a marketer and say, "Oh, I'm going to help them get a purpose." You're really just trying to uncover it, and it's really important in a company with a culture like a Walmart to make sure that that core DNA of the organization is a big part of how you express that purpose. And so I think for as a marketer, the thing that I probably focused on the most over my career was this whole notion of purpose and how to bring that to life with good storytelling and with something that resonates with consumers and customers. And again, that's one of the reasons I really love the Salvation Army. Not every brand can have a purpose that's as significant or as eternally important as the Salvation Army, but a brand like Tostitos can help to bring people together, and a brand like Walmart can help people to
Especially
save
on a
money.
Super Bowl night, right?
Exactly, absolutely. So that was always a big part of what I believe is so important to bring to brands. And I guess in an ideal world, if you can bring all this performance marketing now with the data capabilities that are available through the digital ecosystems, you could really have the best of both worlds.
I get asked often, why does the Salvation Army, a well known brand, really an institution, we're going to celebrate 150 years in America in 2030, 165 years soon for the International Salvation Army. Why does the Salvation Army need to advertise? I'm just curious if you could help me answer that for some of our critics.
Yeah. Well, the reason is that it's a movement, and you want to keep moving if you're going to be in a movement. And you know, the Salvation Army needs to motivate its own the Army. It needs to motivate the people who volunteer. It needs to motivate donors who can fund the kinds of programs that the Salvation Army is involved in. And honestly, at some level, it also has to motivate the people who need the Army to know that they need it. In the same way that the church needs to be proclaiming Christ and the gospel on a weekly or more frequently basis. It's it's a message that needs to be said a lot, and times change, and so you're always trying to find a way to keep that brand resonating with people. It's not enough to just know a brand; you want to be motivated by the brand, and that's, I think, a big part of what the people involved in what you would call marketing. That's their job, is to help craft those messages that will motivate the various constituencies of an organization. And for a business, it's clearly to sell stuff. It's to grow the revenue of the organization.
Yeah, and for the Salvation Army, that's twofold, right? We need ambassadors, we need volunteers, we need supporters financially, and then through all that, we get to tell the good news of Christ. And so it is a remarkable privilege. And I've watched you, Stephen, sort of lead our uh, committee, just bringing a wealth of experience, and you have a lot of co-marketers who are on that committee. And I just want to affirm your work because it's meant so much to us to have your expertise around the table. You ask the right questions and you challenge us, and I commend you for that. And so thank you for your service. I'm curious, how did you get asked to be a part of the Salvation Army and join the National Advisory Board? How did that come about?
Well, first of all, my knowledge of the Army started like most people. It was more or less as a consumer. It's probably not the exact right words, but I noticed the kettles like everyone else, and really the Salvation Army, between the physical presence as well as the cultural presence, movies, that books, those kinds of things. It The Army was always a part of Christmas as I knew it, and when I worked at Frito Lay, as you referenced earlier, our president of Frito Lay was Steve Reineman at the time, and he just happened to also be the chair of the NAB of the Salvation Army at the same time, and was there for the really initial creation of the Dallas Cowboys Red Kettle Kickoff. And I was working in marketing at the time, as I said, and when Steve came back from the NAB meeting where I guess this was discussed, and it was between the Cowboys and many other partners, and especially the Salvation Army, it was decided this thing was going to happen. We at Frito Lay got involved in supporting that initial effort. And then years later, when I was at Walmart, because as you said earlier, Walmart is a really strong partner to the Salvation Army, and we had such a presence of kettles and Salvation Army people around all of our thousands of stores that we in marketing, along with the Salvation Army, made advertising together because it was such a visible part of Christmas at Walmart. We thought we really ought to do something with this to just integrate it into our Christmas campaigns, and so we did that, and I think it's a really good example of a win-win. I mean, I know our
Absolutely.
motivation at Walmart was it's good for Walmart, but it's also important to our associates to support the Salvation Army, and so it was great for the Army, great for our associates, and great for Walmart.
It's a beautiful ad too, by the way, and we'll share a link when we share out this podcast. I think you can still find it on YouTube.
Well, I was going to say that after I retired from Walmart, I got a call from Tori Foster, who's also on the NAB. But I'd known Tori, believe it or not, back from when he worked at Quaker Oats, and then as a recruiter of marketers. He was and is one of the top recruiters of marketers. So if you were anybody in the marketing profession, you knew Tori Foster. And he gave me a call, and honestly, I figured, oh, he's probably going to ask me if I'd be interested in doing some other marketing job. And when he brought up the NAB of the Salvation Army, I had already had this experience with Steve Reineman, with Walmart. um, and really with my family as a result of just knowing the Army and participating in the Army at a local level. And so I was really excited to have the opportunity to join the NAB. And as I said, it's so exceeded my expectations. It's been just really fantastic.
Wow. Well, I have to thank Tori as well. He's one of our best recruiters, by the way.
He is. Well, I mean, he's a pro. He knows what he's doing when it comes to recruiting. You can't get somebody better for recruiting
Wouldn't
people to.
surprise you why we got him as our nominating chair for so many years, right?
Oh, that's
So
right. That's right.
there's one question I want to come back to, Stephen, because you talk so beautifully about how Christ just came into you and Linda's life at that moment in time for your family when you needed him most. I also think about you in the marketplace. I would imagine there's sort of an intersection of your personal faith in the marketplace. And how does a believer like you and the top levels of marketing, can you think of moments where in the marketplace your personal faith was really helpful to you and to others who you were working with?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One is, it's a mission field. Not everybody's a marketer. I think it's a mission field if you're a plumber, if you're an accountant. Um, God has placed. There's a lot of people in the marketplace. I mean, most people. I've heard people even say recently things like, you know, only 20% of Americans are going to find their way into a church this week, but most people will find themselves in a place of work. And so that mission field is really important. And so the people around us, the people on your teams, the people that God has entrusted to you, you've got an opportunity to influence them for the gospel. And then if you happen to be in a career like marketing, you also have the opportunity to follow through on that in some of the ways that you communicate. Again, back to purpose. Um, that's a life giving part of a purpose of an organization or even a brand. And sometimes it can be overt, and sometimes it needs to be something less than overt, but certainly aligned with the values that we have as followers of Christ. And so lots of opportunities to proclaim the gospel in many different ways in the marketplace. And again, that's where most people are spending their certainly Monday to Friday.
The harvest field goes way beyond the church walls, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And in fact, so much of what the church is really supposed to be doing is, equipping people to go out into the marketplace, just as Jesus said in the Great Commission, to go out into all the world and to proclaim Him and to proclaim the gospel. And the marketplace is one of the best, if not the best, place to do that.
I have a lightning round for you, Stephen, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do a lightning round.
Your favorite advertisement jingle or company slogan?
Well, I've got so many ads over the years that I love because of, there's so many great case stories. I mean, really effective advertising, but you can, especially when you can see why. But then there's, it's always changing. And so right now, I would say my favorite is probably Dr. Rick for Progressive Insurance. I don't know if it would go down as an all time, but I love it when those ads come on. And the reason is I love how there's an insight really into my generation, because the whole idea there is, for new homeowners who are becoming their parents. Well, I'm the parent now, I'm the older one. They have these insights into them, and it's so good how they bring it to life. Just last night I saw the one where Dr. Rick says something like, "Oh boy, they like to just get involved in everything." And the guy's telling the person next to him, who's much younger than him, how to pack his groceries. Make sure you put the, soda on the bottom, followed by the cookies, followed by the popcorn. And it's just I just get a chuckle out of them because there's just so much that is hilarious about that. And it does a good job as an ad, sort of saying if you bundle your car and house insurance. In other words, here's a simple solution with having to go through the whole rigmarole of becoming your parents. It's really great.
That's clever. Do you have a favorite campaign so far with the Salvation Army?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really excited about this year's campaign. I won't give it away because I'm not exactly sure when people are going to hear it, but I think it's going to be very positive and motivating. But the Salvation Army, I think when we've done storytelling, it's been the strongest because I think great advertising has a rational message wrapped in an emotional envelope. And, we've got so many great stories. As you know, Dale, we go to all these different cities for NAB meetings, and the local folks will always show us a little bit of what they've been working on, what they're doing. And very often we'll see case studies of people that the Army has helped, and we'll hear their story. And they're just so, it's just so, really pulls on your heartstrings because I think it reminds you of our own journeys and just how we've been saved, and it's just so wonderful to hear other people who have been saved. And if I think of Silent Night, our ad from last year at Christmas, it really tells a story of how the Army is there to really save someone in a desperate situation, and it's just really encouraging.
It's a great reminder for what we do every day in the Salvation Army and bring us home to the mission. And it's so appealing to so many who just want to help many families like the one that's in Silent Night. You live in Dallas. Let's say you're taking friends out for barbecue to eat barbecue or Tex Mex.
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. But nowadays, why choose? Because now you can
Oh,
go to places and you can get Frisco tacos. So you've got the best of both worlds right there. But
fantastic.
you can't really go wrong with either one.
I think you've already answered this. If you had not pursued a degree in marketing, what might you have done? I think you'd have been a bean counter, right?
Yeah, a very not one that one you'd be looking sideways at all the time just to keep me well supervised. I'm sure.
Not implying that all finance jobs are bean counters. I don't want to
No,
insult
that's
those who are in wealth management, and there are a number of jobs in finance
they've
development.
proven their worth. That's for sure.
This is our December episode. Name one Christmas tradition for the Quinn family.
Yeah, I've got a family, with my family background that I've already described. You can probably imagine that we've got a fairly sentimental angle on Christmas. And so there's a lot of traditions. In fact, we have all the traditional ones, decorating, for example. In fact, believe it or not, we're taping this right at the beginning of November. And I am just not even a week away from having to go up into the dreaded attic and pull down what seems like 4,000 boxes of decorations, and my wife, especially Linda, will decorate pretty close to every single room in the house,
I
and
love it.
so our house always is very inspiring at this time of year, or at the time of year that's
Do you
coming up.
hang lights outside,
We've
and
got the outside lights. We got inside lights. We have multiple Christmas trees. It's really something. But and a little bit of an odd tradition we have is that our kids would get so excited on Christmas morning that my wife Linda couldn't really get them to eat anything, and so it was the one time they were allowed to have Captain Crunch, sugared cereal as we called it back then, and we've had Captain Crunch every single Christmas since. So my kids, like I said, have grown up, but still they expect to see that one box of Captain Crunch that we're going to have a year appear on our table on Christmas morning, and it always does.
oh, what a great tradition! If you could only visit one place, where would it be?
One place, I would have to say it would be Colorado. I find myself going back there couple of times every year, and it's just so the mountains are so majestic in the Rockies, and yeah, Canada, New Zealand, they have similar, but they're a lot farther away too. And from here in Texas, you can get into the mountains in Colorado in about less than 2 hours, and so it's amazing. So Switzerland, fantastic, but I'll take Colorado because you don't have a 12-hour flight that you have to take to
Lights,
get there.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
they're
Colorado
yeah,
is a beautiful place.
Yeah, and it just I know everybody listening to this, it just really resonates when when you see just the glory of God's creation. It not only causes contemplation, but just a sense of awe and really worship that you feel there, and it's pretty close to breathtaking.
It's amazing seeing the creativity of God, isn't it? Especially
Absolutely.
in the Garden of the Gods in Colorado and the beautiful
Yes.
mountain.
Yes.
Yeah, Pikes Peak is just a beautiful place. Name what one pet peeve you have in a business meeting or business in general.
Uh, my pet peeve would be the flip side of my passion for purpose for brands and companies. And that is when a company or an organization either hasn't defined their purpose or has forgotten it, which I think is much more common. And it is a kind of an entropy that happens in all organizations. There's a temptation to walk away from that because it can be a little bit inconvenient. And if it's a great purpose, it will be very much centered on your customers and your consumers. And at times in a business, there's that temptation to step a little bit away from that because it can be profitable in the short term. But it's very obvious to customers when that's happening, and it can be really damaging to the enterprise. And it's true of churches, it's true of the Salvation Army. If you walk away from that purpose, if you step away from it, you can find yourself lost in a forest. And so that's my pet peeve. And you can see it happening all over. Organizations that were unbelievably customer focused, just over time, there can be you can step a little bit away from that and you can really feel it happening. I mean, just today, I was trying to cancel a service, an electronic service, and boy, buying into that service was one click and it was super easy. But do you think it was easy to get out of it? No way. And why do you think it is that way? And so it's
You could spend
amazing how,
hours on the phone,
yeah,
transferred from one to
yeah,
another,
you've
no
got,
answered emails. Yeah.
what's wrong with it? What can we do? And so on. It's like, what you can do is cancel this. I want out. And so it's hard for organizations to stay on purpose, and that's why we need people that are really committed to the purpose and that will remind everyone else and motivate them to keep moving forward on that, because that's the way to win, is to keep engagement with your donors, with your customers, with your consumers.
Yeah. Mission drift can happen so easily in a Christian movement like ours, for example. And I'm so glad we have board members like you who remind us our due north is the mission to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human needs in his name without discrimination. And God help us keep that mission. You've been with the Salvation Army now 7 years. You've seen a lot. You've met a couple generals who've come to our National Advisory Board meetings. So if Stephen Quinn were general in London, England for the Salvation Army for one day, what would you do?
Well, this is something I would consider. I'm not sure I would quote unquote do it because just given our previous conversation, I would hate to be accused of mission drift. But being a marketer, I can also be a little bit at risk of that at times. But I think, look, the Salvation Army was created by William Booth at a time when people were in really desperate need in London and their basic human needs were not being met. And the Salvation Army, since that time, has had no problem finding people in just as desperate situations physically. But the world is changing. And in many ways, the what we're experiencing now in our culture is that people's physical needs are being probably better met than they ever have been. Honestly, if some of the statistics we read are to be uh, are true. But in so many ways, the spiritual needs are really going unmet. And you can also see that in many of the things that we see going on in our society with isolation, depression, mental illness, loneliness. Um, and so, no surprise, the world needs Jesus. The world needs the gospel now more than ever. And I guess if I was general, I would at least look at if there's a way to expand the outreach of the army to include just what Jesus called the spiritually poor, the poor at heart, um, because as I said at the very beginning, the people I've met within the Army are just so awesome. They're theologically so sound and so wise, and their hearts are so tender. I wish that that could get shared with a broader group of people, while knowing that, yes, we're to be the hands and feet, and there are physical needs that need to be met, but there's just so many amputated souls out there in the world that we're living in. And I would love to get some of the people from the Army together with some of those people who maybe their physical needs are being met, but they're just desperate for a purpose and for hope.
Oh, what a great challenge to us, Stephen. Thank you. Well, we always end our podcast with a question. Is there anything I can do to pray for you and your family as we close out this time together?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that, and it's been a great discussion. I really appreciate everything that the Army does, and you, Dale, and everything you do with the NAB and beyond. Um, Look, I'm in the last quarter of my life, and it's. I think that the if I'm fortunate, if God grants me this, I'll have maybe 20 more years, which would be great. But just pray that I finish well, and that that I'm faithful, and that I'm a good follower.
Wow. Great, great prayer today. Great prayer request. Let us pray together. God, I thank you so much for your goodness, your grace, your mercy, your love. Thank you for a new day that you've given us. And just to have this time to speak with my friend and brother in Christ, Stephen Quinn, and to think about his impact on this earth, all the things that he's spoken of to advance your kingdom. I pray your blessing upon him and his family, his children, his grandchildren. Um, Thank you for what he means to so many, not just his family, but those on our board, those he comes into contact with on other boards that he serves with. And I just pray, Father, you would bless his faith, that you would enlarge his tent, that you would help him finish the race, and to do it well and pleasing in your sight. And Lord, I just pray that you'll give all of us the opportunity to advance your mission of modeling the Great Commandment and advancing the Great Commission in our sphere of influence. And Father, we're grateful for the Salvation Army and all the opportunity you give us. And may it be so that we will always live up to your high calling for what you've called this movement to be. Thank you again for Stephen and his wise counsel and direction in the marketing area, as well as all of our national board members for their dedicated service, their wisdom and leadership and guidance. And we thank you for this time today. In Jesus' name, I make this prayer. Amen.
Amen.
You're listening to the Board Matters podcast, where we highlight the Salvation Army's most dedicated board members and volunteers serving around the country every day. For more information about the Salvation Army, visit salvationarmyusa.org. If you're an advisory organization member and need resources for growing your local advisory organization or board, visit mysaboard.org or aohub.org.